True, nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous had I been, and am. But why would you say that I'm mad? Listen how calmly I can tell you the entire story by degrees. I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and rid myself of his evil eye forever. With what dissimulation I went to work. I slowly turned the latch to the old man's house and opened it, oh so gently. I moved slowly so as not to disturb the old man's slumber. When I had made a space, I moved my head inside and undid my lantern, cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I then undid my lantern, so a thin ray of light would shine out upon the vulture eye, always slumbering. I did this for 7 long nights. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves faster than mine did. I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. Not a groan of pain or of grief. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. And presently a new sound entered my ears. It was a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. I waited a long time, patiently. Without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily I opened it. Until, at length, a thin ray of light, like the thread of a spider, shot out and landed upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide, wide open. Even yet, I refrained and did not move. I scarcely breathed. I held my lantern motionless. Meanwhile, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew louder and louder and quicker every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. And then, in that dead hour of the night, in the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leapt into the room. He shrieked only once, and in an instant I dragged him to the floor and I pulled the heavy mattress on top of him. The heart beat on with a muffled sound. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. His evil eye would trouble me no more. The night waned, and I worked hastily. In silence. First, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, arms, and legs. I then drew up 3 boards from the floor of the chamber and deposited it all between the scantlings. You cannot imagine how cleverly, how cunningly I replaced them that no human eye could detect anything was wrong. By the time I put an end to these labors, it was nearly 4 o'clock. And it was still dark as midnight outside. As the bell chimed the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went downstairs to open it, and there stood 3 men, officers of the police. A shriek had been heard during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, and the 3 men had been dispatched to search the premises. I took them all over the house. I then brought them chairs and bade them rest from their fatigues, while I, myself, placed my chair precisely upon the spot which reposed the corpse of the victim! They sat, and I answered cheerily. We talked of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself growing pale, and I wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. The men still sat and chatted. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling. And yet, the sound continued and grew more distinct. No doubt I now grew very pale. I talked even more freely, and yet the sound continued. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes in a velvet top. I talked more quickly, and yet the sound continued. I arose and argued about trifles. I spoke in a high key and with violent gesticulations, and still the sound continued. Why would the men not be gone? I arose and paced to and fro with heavy strides as if excited to observation of the men. I foamed, I raved, I swore, I flung my chair from the spot that rested upon the floor, and I grated it upon the floorboards. And still, the sound continued and rose over all. Louder, 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 and still the men sat and smiled at me pleasantly. Was it possible that they heard not? No, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew they were making a mockery of my terror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better